the nights would be so dark, the darkness would be so heavy that there are moments when indeed I could touch the darkness. There are many times I would wake up in the middle of the night and find myself engulfed in darkness, in fear, and even when I extend my hand away from me, it's like I can just feel the solid darkness. There are times I would lie in bed and just stare into the dark roof and just feel very scared. There are times I would walk with my head bowed down, the world weighing so heavy on me, my heart so crushed and crumbled. And I would remember the days long gone by. Many times I would play the song by Bonnie M, by the rivers of Babylon. There I wept, there I cried.
Welcome again to the Family Therapy Podcast. Today with me we have a guest, Mr. George Chacha, and I'm your host, Jane Agwenge. Today we are here to narrate on the pains that the men go through after a breakup, especially marriage or rather a long-term relationship, breakups. And to my surprise, I thought that it was only ladies who go through such kind of pains, but I'm here with a victim who also went through some pains after breakup, regrets probably, I don't know. He'll be here to tell us. So, Mr. Chacha, most often I hear after long breakups, ladies are the ones who go through the pains, and men, after probably a long-term relationship or marriage, they just come out of that breakup spreading their shirt, go take 1 or 2 beers, or rather maybe go out with friends, and they're done. They're just good. They've moved on. But your story is different. And today, from hearing your story, I was really interested. You share with our viewers what really transpired and how painful was it.
Well, thank you, Jane. My name is George Chacha of the Family Therapy Podcast. I am going to explain the pains that I believe many men, possibly, maybe I'm not the only one, the pain that many go through after a marriage breakup. It is so painful. And the reason why I say it is so painful, because when I got into marriage, I had expectations. I had aspirations. Mm-hmm. I had values that I sought to stand for. And I had a stage that I needed to fulfill. And just in a nutshell, before I go into the details, my marriage breakup was probably the second most tragic incident in my life after the loss of my son. I remember the day that I woke up to the harsh reality that indeed my marriage is no more, or my marriage is on a downward trend of disintegrating, which now I can really say that it broke into millions of pieces. And it was so traumatizing. There are many times I would lie in bed and just cupping the back of my head, looking into the ceiling board, into the roof, asking myself so many questions. Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? There are those occasions when I really wanted someone to tell my story. I wanted to speak about me. I really looked for God. Mm-hmm. And it is during that time that I can say I experienced maybe one of the biggest anguish in my life. Like I said, when I was young, I envisaged myself with a relatively small family, family that would be very flexible. From my childhood, I grew up in a family, in a very large family. I remember we were quite many because I have grown up in a polygamous family. And having grown up in a polygamous family, I found myself under the same roof with very many siblings, from wife number one, from wife number two, from wife number three. And I honestly don't have very good experiences or memories of my youth, because then it was a life of a lot of insufficiency, a life of a lot of discomfort. And so I really envisaged a complete, blissful, happy family, and that is what I was determined to hold. And after my marriage breakup, then I realized that I was losing what I had envisaged for myself. I was losing what I really stood for, and therefore it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. And it just wasn't easy.
Okay, Chacha, before you proceed, I just want to remind our viewers, continue following Family Therapy Podcasts. Remember to like and click that bell just down there so that you can be able to follow our stories. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chacha.
Well, thanks. The many lonely days that I went through, there are times when I came to the harsh reality that actually I'm losing it. And it wasn't easy. And because then at the back of my mind, I realized that it was not about me winning. It was not about me having my way. It was about my family having their way. It is not about what I liked or what I wanted. It was about what was good for my family. And at some point, I realized that it's never about physical strength. It's not about the power of money, position. It was about wisdom and knowledge. And therefore, I found myself summoning a lot of wisdom for myself, trying to ask myself, because ordinarily asking another man, maybe many men would have given me a very different advice from what I did, from the decision that I made. And therefore, I listened more to myself and to God more than to other people. So for me, I knew that the key to my right path in my life was really a lot of wisdom, a lot of love, a lot of understanding, a lot of accommodating. Because then I knew that if I took a selfish decision, if I took an insensitive decision, then not only did I stand to break the marriage, but then I stood to break even and hurt my children. There are many occasions when I really wanted to involve my grown-up children and ask them, guys, what do you think I should do? How should I go about this? But then it was not possible. And therefore, in family conflict situations, there will be those moments when it is never about me or about my spouse, but it's about us, about the children, the well-being of the whole family, and where we are heading to. I knew exactly the final destination of my family, and that's where I wanted to steer this ship towards. But then I realized that the rudder of controlling this ship actually had kind of disconnected, and therefore I had to use, maybe I don't know they would call it unorthodox means, and use very kind of liberal means to hold myself intact and even to hold other people intact. Yeah, so that is what.
Meaning you were in a domestic violence kind of relationship, your wife was something else. Could you just enlighten the viewers on the kind of marriage you are in?
Well, Jane, thanks for that question. I know many people really always want to know the details of exactly what transpired. Unfortunately, I'm always a little bit particular, being sensitive to, I'm a little bit sensitive to my family, okay? It's very difficult for one to talk about his life, his past, without talking about the people who were involved in his life, people who walked into his life. And therefore, even as much as I always want to give the detailed background of my marriage, but then I realized that I could end up looping in people who are not party to this program. And for that, I feel that maybe I should respect their privacy. And therefore, I would honestly want to say that I know for certain that I married maybe one of the best girls who has cautioned me in very many thunderstorms of life. I know I will always be in debt, and like I normally say, honestly, I will always be in debt to her. The challenges, the difficulties she went through, even when we were raising the children, I know they're immense. And therefore, I do not want to bring all this discussion into this show, but I just want to talk about myself.
Okay.
Just like I said, is that I know it was very traumatic. There are moments when I wished that maybe I could undo certain things. There are moments when I desired and yearned for dialogue. I really wished that my family could sit down together and we hold a truth, justice, and reconciliation commission. So looking back, I would say that I helplessly saw the torrents, the floods sweeping my history down the Sasimwa Dam, if I may say. I saw the floods of life erasing what I had written for many years. And my dream was actually being swept away. And I had to even look for help from people. And well, Jane, as I sit with you, I have seen a story of pastors, these miracles, churches going around. I found myself journeying up to Mombasa, Majaoni. I had to attend Pastor Ezekiel's service. Jane, I needed a miracle. Interestingly, in the last episode I was talking about miracles, but then this was miracles in the occult. I had been listening for quite some time. I had been listening to Pastor Ezekiel's teachings, which I really found to be quite in tune with the biblical teachings. And I was not spared also the thought or maybe the imagination that maybe there could be a miracle, because I felt that things were not going right in my life. I felt that despite having lost a son to death, I felt that maybe there were more losses that were coming in my life. And it is that moment of me trying to seek spiritual spiritual intervention that I got closer to God. And since then, I would say that I'm constantly looking up to the cross. I'm constantly seeking the Word of God. I derive solace from the Word of God. I derive peace, my inner peace. I derive my well-being from the Word of God. And it is in that moment that I also thought of going to look for divine peace, divine intervention from New Life Church and Prayer in Majaoni. At that time, he had not yet migrated to Kilifi. I attended that church. I wanted also to offer sacrifice. And like he says, sacrifice number 5, sacrifice number 7, I felt that maybe I should offer sacrifice number 7 with the view, which is 7,000 shillings, with the view of reaping. And unfortunately, really nothing happened. things continued being that until now. Again, I remembered my past and I said, never again I'm going to look for miracles. I went to my journey looking for a miracle. I didn't get it, and I've left everything to God. The fate, my fate and the fate of my family. However, I must also be quick to point out that in the midst of this struggle within myself, there was someone who stood by me, who maybe I hope at some point I'll be able to talk about her maybe and explain about her, who stood with me materially, emotionally, psychologically, and I got some strength again to pick up the pieces and rebuild myself.
Chacha, before you continue telling us about what men really go through after marriage breakup, I just want to remind our viewers, please continue liking and clicking that bell down there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Therapy Podcast, as we have beautiful lined up stories ahead. So Chacha, what do you think is the biggest challenge that men usually go through, especially after breakup? What transpires? What usually comes into your mind, you know? And probably is it usually like a form of regret, and you feel like you'd have done something better at the moment, which you've really explained, but what usually runs into your mind?
Jane, in my opinion, the biggest challenge to a man who has lost his family after a marriage breakup is it possible to rewrite my history? Is it possible to rewrite, to kind of undo the problem or the breakup? But unfortunately, again, with the realization, it is emerging that some things, or maybe a marriage gets to a point where it cannot be undone. A marriage conflict, a marriage situation may drift to a point of no return. It's just like when a motorbike is being swept by the floods, like I've been watching. That motorbike is driven by the floods, and up to a certain point, or even the buses that we have seen being swept away by the floods.
Tragic, yeah.
The driver, I can imagine what the driver is feeling when he sees that actually the bus is being swept to the edge of the road, to the edge of the bridge, and there is nothing that he can do. So some marriages are just like that. They have reached a point whereby the torrent is just too big and it has to go under. And therefore, for me, I would always envisage about my dream, my earlier dream. And I think this could be something that is, it could be something that is maybe cutting across in all the men who really loved their families. Because I know for certain that I loved my family without any reservation. I loved my children, I loved their mother, and I really wanted a good family. But somewhere along the way, unfortunately, either as a result of my own inability, I lost the direction. It happens even in the military navigation. You have been given the compass, the ruler, the what do you call it, the protractor and the map, and you're being told to find location C, and then if you calculate wrongly, you will end up in the wrong destination. Maybe that's exactly what happened in my situation. I really do take the blame. I won't say that I was a good person. There are occasions when I was with a lot of shortcomings, and these shortcomings prick my conscience. And these are the shortcomings that would prick any man's conscience, maybe throughout his life. And it's not easy really trying to put them behind, because again, this is a woman that you shared some, or maybe your prime life. This is someone, or maybe there's a partner. It could be also, of course, even the women. Maybe the women go through this. I would love to know from a woman, what are the challenges that they know? I mean, what's the most challenging problem that maybe women go through? For a man, of course, it is that element. He's disconnected from the wife. He is disconnecting from the children, because by default, children belong to the mother. By default and by divine power, these children are connected to their mother. And therefore, I pity those men who always strive to disconnect the children from their mother. It can never happen. It can't. I mean, between the mother and the children, there's a divine connection. And there was also that fear, like, could I be doing something wrong that will make me lose my 2 remaining children? Could I? Okay, fine. There has never been discussion about this, but then at some point, it does cross my mind. What is it that could be crossing the mind of my children? Are they okay? Are they taking this well? These are some of the things that you tell. And from talking to so many youths, unfortunately, they never speak it out. They speak it inside their heart.
The divorce issue really affects them so much.
It affects them, and it affects them, Jane. And if there is anything that I would say to the parents, the spouses who might be watching this podcast, it would be really to ask them, mind what you say to your children. The best, these children have already lost a parent. They have already lost one leg of the family, because a family assumes it has 3 legs. Okay, you cut one leg, it's like a tripod. When you remove one leg, then that tripod goes down. And therefore, when a member of the family goes, one leg of the tripod is gone. So already the children are going through the struggle. Okay, they are going through the struggle with the coming to terms that their father and mother are no more, coming to terms that maybe they don't know where tomorrow's bread and the butter is going to come from. They don't know whether they'll complete school. Therefore, the children are already going through a lot of turmoil. And the worst they would want to hear is for one parent to incite, to poison, to kind of try disconnecting these children from the other parent. In my opinion, Jane, what I would strongly suggest to any parent watching this episode is, if the marriage has come to an end, if there is anything good you can do to your children, is to push them to your partner even more. Connect them to your partner even more. Speak positively about your partner to your children. As much as it may be painful.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Even if they really saw what was really happening, speaking good about somebody depends with the behavior they used to portray, in front of the children. If these 2 parents used to fight in the presence of the children, and probably the children will know whoever started the fight, maybe if it was the father or the mother, what would you say in such a scenario? If it's a scenario where both the parents fight in the presence before their children, while their children watch how maybe their mother picks up some flower vase and throws it at the father, and maybe the father just removes the belt and starts.
Actually, that's quite a good question, Jane. In such a scenario where the children have witnessed the violence, no matter what, the father beating the wife or the mother doing the same to the father, in such a scenario, it is important to just explain to the children and remind them, telling them that, my children, we are not an exception. Many families go through the same. This is a problem that has descended on our family, we need to be strong. Maybe for example, I wouldn't mind like I would mind a partner, for example, telling the children like, my children, your mother or your father, let me use now example of a father, okay? Because sometimes we fathers, we feel like we own the children, we have taken over the children, we have kind of wrestled the children from their mother. If I have done that and I have ended up with the children, the best thing I can do to my children is exactly telling them positive things. For example, like my children, I want you to know that your mom will always be your mom. It's just that we have differed on some issues, but she is your mom. You owe her every help you can. You owe her every recognition, every love that you can. My children, I want you to know that your mom and I, and this now goes even to the men. I mean, it will be very important when you have separated. Like in one of the episodes I said, don't divorce your wife. Go separate ways instead. And therefore, in marriage, again, when it comes to that element of conflict, we need wisdom. We don't need power and muscles in marriage conflict. We don't need money. We don't need legal aid in marriage. I think more importantly, we need wisdom. We need soberness. So if, for example, I was to separate with my wife, I think it will be important for us to put the interests of the children first. And therefore, if the father was a sober kind of man who just tells, and in fact, I normally encourage, and I normally say, before a man and wife really come to parting ways, let them call the children and let them then that, guys, we have come to a point where we realize that we can't continue living together for some reasons. True. And we feel it's for the best of this family that we go separate ways.
That's quite informative of you.
Thank you.
You know, when most parents, probably people who are married, go through some breakup and it ends up into divorce, you find that and it's not something against us women, but you find that us women, we really try to like put the kids against their dads, or make dads feel like, okay, look like something they were not really. Like
the bad guy.
Yes, like the bad guy. Then it's even worse when really the woman was the one who was provocative, and at the end this man gets provoked and hits the woman. The last beat that the children saw will be dad was beating mom. But something that really provoked dad to beat mom is not seen in the picture. Is really informative, you know. Like, if it was dad, tell them this is your dad, he will remain being your dad, and we just really can't be together, you know. So that's quite informative, Chacha. Just to enlighten us again, really, with your story, what do you think? Like, did you really move on after this? Did you really move on after the breakup, after the long due challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, really, I would say that this breakup kind of opened my inner eyes. Okay, it opened my inner eyes so that I came to appreciate things that hitherto I had been taken for granted. I came to appreciate people in my life that for some reasons I had only taken their existence for granted. I came to love even more, okay? In my heart, there kind of sprouted a new type of love, a new type of views on members of my family, on neighbors, on friends. And therefore, it kind of rejuvenated, it kind of ushered in a whole new me, seeing things from a very different perspective. And the other thing that it also this breakup did, it drew me much closer to God. It kind of made me draw now my wisdom, my understanding, my knowledge from the Word of God. More than ever before, I found myself reading the Word of God. More than ever before, I found myself involved in the matters of God. So basically, that's a transformation that happened in me, that I no longer take people, situations, things for granted. Now, how did I move on? I have to admit that it wasn't easy. I mean, it hasn't been easy. And remember, Jane, I'm talking about having lost a very dear son under very painful circumstances. I know there are times I think about him, and especially the very last moments with me. And I feel sad. I feel pain. Sometimes people say that you should overcome. I mean, you should heal. You should. That's the kind of memory that I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget that death. I don't want to forget that loss, because it's the connecting point between me and my departed son. Therefore, talking of like whether I have really moved on, there are things that I can never undo, just like I said earlier. They happened, and looking back, I know for certain if God was to give me a second time, maybe I'll do them differently. But then I realized also that I have to, in the Bible, the Bible says, the Bible asked one of the prophets, is it the prophet? No, Samuel actually. The God asked Samuel and said, for how long will you continue grieving for Saul? Don't you see I have rejected him? The Bible talks of prophets who had poured ashes on themselves, and God tells them, come on, get up. Time for morning is up. Go and clean yourself, wipe yourself, and apply oil on yourself, and move on. And therefore, I have also come to that point that I have to force myself, pick up the broken pieces, as many as they are. And Jane, they are in millions. I have had to pick them up and build myself. I have to live for my dead son. I have to live for my life, for tomorrow. I have to live for other people. Every time a young person calls me, telling me, Mr. Chacha, I have mental health. Every time a woman calls me or a man calls me, every time a parent calls and tells me, Chacha, when I heard you talk about your situation, my son, my daughter is going through the same, or maybe we are going through the same. Jane, my tears flowed. I mean, I feel pain. I agonize, because I have come to identify myself with many people, with many victims. There are very many people who are going through painful moments in their marriages. There are many people who are going through painful moments. They are witnessing their children wasting away, their children drifting, their children disintegrating. It pains me when a child, a young person in his 20s, in his 30s calls me and tell me, Mr. Chacha, I heard your story. The things you talked about your son having, I have them 100% or even more. Jane, I weep. My heart pains. And therefore, I have taken this upon myself as a vocation, as a calling. For me, I'm serving the community now. I'm serving humanity through my talk. And without downplaying my role, I know I have touched many. I have touched many youths, not just in Kenya, outside Kenya, from as far as Australia. And I have had to share with them. I have had to expound, describe the meaning of trauma, I have had to explain the meaning of trauma experience in their lives, trying to connect their past childhood trauma. I have had to teach many people about the river of life, where somebody has to draw a life from the time when he or she was age 5 up to today, kind of telling them, indicate your lowest moment in life and your highest moment in life. And then I start engaging them along the lowest moments in their lives, along the highest moments in their lives. And therefore, for me, it has been, I draw strength from this. So how have I picked up my pieces? How have I been able to move on? I have been able to move on by empowering other people, by talking to the youth, by talking to parents who reach out to me to have a one-on-one discussion, and by just setting aside time. I have taken this as a mission, as a calling. In my earlier engagement, I explained that I went through the seminary with a view of wanting to become an ordained minister of God. I realized I may not be ordained by man, but God has ordained me to touch people's lives. And Jane, I have touched people's lives. One woman called me from Australia and she told me, George, I'm sorry that you had to go through what you went through, but looking back and listening to you talk about your story, it is good that it happened, because you have touched many people. You have touched me. You have taught me. You have capacity built me. Can you imagine this? Somebody who saw the story even before I have talked to her, all the way from Sydney in Australia. Many people have reached out with similar comments that my marriage breakup was like a sacrifice so that other marriages don't walk down the lane that my marriage walked. So from these comments from people, from the comments of the people calling out to comment about my story, I draw my strength, and I draw my strength to move on. But again, like I said, I had to get up from the river of Babylon. I had to wash and apply the olive oil upon my head and move on. Try to build myself, try to save and salvage myself. And that's exactly what I've been doing. That's what I do even up to this moment. And even as I speak to you, it is my prayer, Jane, that someone will be touched. And maybe when I will be coming now to close as to the do's and the don'ts, the best way to navigate around this, it is my prayer that God anoints my word so that it will not just be my words, but the anointed word of God. Because for the first time more than ever before, I feel the Spirit of God inside me. I feel that I am new. I am new, yes.
And one of the things that I've learned is that even the Bible talks about there is time for mourning and there is time to wake up, wash the ashes, and just continue with your life.
Exactly.
And that's the exact thing that you did.
That's what I did, and that's what I'm doing. Jane, I'm not bragging, I'm not boasting, but trust me, my sister, I have instilled hope in many people. I have touched households, but it's not me. God has given me the ability. When somebody listens to what I say and then someone for the first time says that, yes, I think I need Jesus in my life.
True.
That is powerful. Someone who earlier was not godly, because during counseling, one of the questions that somebody asked, what is your symbol of hope? What is it that when it flashes your mind, you get hope? You get rather you have hope. Many people will talk of like when I think about my father, when I think about my mother, when I think about so and so. Some people say when I think about the word of God, when I go to church. Some people have said that when I kneel in church in front of the altar, I feel like I am hopeful. I feel like it is really powerful for me. Now, for me, when somebody who hitherto has not been a church going, and after almost talking to that person for 2 to 3.5 hours, and somebody says that, I think I need Jesus. That's powerful. And for me, it is a moment of joy and celebration.
To our viewers, I just want to continue reminding you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Therapy Podcast. And remember to like our page, click that bell down there to subscribe so that we can continue giving you hope through this channel. So George, as we are winding up, what advice would you give to the families who are really on the trench of breaking up, or are really thinking of just maybe doing the worst, or to those families that have already made a decision and they've just broken up and it's over? What kind of advice would you give such kind of
thank you
people?
Really, to the viewers, to those who are on the waiting list of breaking up, please don't break up. Hold it there. To those who are on the verge of breaking up, can you call a dialogue meeting between the two of you? Call your children to a round table and apply the principle of conflict resolution. Resolve the conflict rather than going the downward trend. To those who have broken up, and this is very, very important, do not use your children to punish your estranged partner. Do not. Do not use your children to hit at your partner. If you have gone the broken way, may you go in peace. In fact, like I normally tell many people, Jane,
go in peace.
Hug as you end your marriage. Hug with your partner. In front of the children. Hug.
What?
No matter what. If, especially where children are involved, as difficult as it may be, that is the first wall of protecting your children against mental health. That is the first remedy, antidote to protecting your children against mental health that often arises as a result of marriage breakup. Very important.
Mr. Chacha, some marriages end up very, very bad, where in our native language we say okagre, like even that hug,
it cannot work.
It can't hug. It doesn't really work.
Remember, I may be talking to Christians, I may be talking to Muslims, or even to non-believers, but I will use the philosophy of one great teacher named Jesus Christ. He said that the road to happiness is narrow. Only few walk down through that, but the road to eternal condemnation is wide and beautiful. And it is only through difficult challenges that we find victory. How can you talk of having won a war without fighting? Bring me to the point, to those people maybe who have not subscribed to Family Therapy Podcast. There is an episode that I explained and I described how people should separate, how they should end marriage. Especially where children are involved, the worst thing you can do to yourself, to your children, and for generations to come is to end violently, to even kind of be so much at enmity with your partner, because the losers, the end losers are the children actually. Therefore, when you ask me how can you hug when you have parted ways, then it simply means that both of you are bad. No matter the situation, no matter the pain and the anguish that somebody has caused, I think if you think about your children, you have every reason to hug that person for the sake of the children. And I normally give an example of the story of King Solomon. King Solomon was faced with one of the most difficult decisions that has earned him his title and name in the Bible, when two women, one foolish woman who had slept on her child and ended up dying, then in the morning she realized that her child is dead. And what does she do? She exchanged her dead child with a living child. And she upheld that the living child is hers. And therefore they took the matter to King Solomon. And King Solomon realized that this is a difficult thing. How do I find out? There was no DNA at that time. How do I find out that this child belongs to mother A or mother B? He asked for a sword, holding the child upside down. He wanted to divide. He said, let me divide then, so that I give each of you a piece or a half of this child. What did the fake mother say? She said, yes, divide it. Okay? Because she was a fake mother. She did not have the motherly love. She did not have the divine connection. But think of what the real mother said. Your Majesty, don't kill this child. Do not divide this child. Instead, give that child to this woman. Married couples, you who are listening to this episode, you will come to that point where you will use Solomonic wisdom, where instead of dividing the children into two, where instead of wanting to punish your partner, you will tell your partner, Mama or Baba, who should go with the child? I absolutely have no problem with the mother going with the child if it's for the good of the child. I absolutely have no problem if I go with the child if it's for the good of the child. But what is important is the two of us should sit together. For the sake of our children, we have every reason to make peace, to bury the hatchet, to kind of embrace in front of the children and tell them that our children, we have come to that point whereby our living together cannot be taken any further. Therefore, you have to understand it's for the good and it's for your good. I love you. We will always love you. We will always be there for you. But for some reasons, we have to go separate ways. And now that is where you people have to hug. That's where this couple, no matter how angry at each other they are, they have every reason to act the Solomonic way and just hug, embrace each other and say yes, I agree, go. Now, the other point that the families that are separated should never do is to poison their children. Do not poison, incite your child against his or her other parent. Whereas you may be appearing to be winning, whereas because your intention is to drive a wedge between the children and your estranged partner. Do not incite the children. On the surface, you may appear to have won, but you have broken your child. You have broken your children into a million pieces. Those children will grow with the hatred. They will grow with the bitterness. And to bring me to that point, I normally say that no matter how much harm your partner has caused you, the worst you can do to yourself and to your children is to tell your children to hate him or to hate her. Because that child will grow a traumatized person, will grow a very pessimistic person, will grow without any good seed inside him or her. And what it will simply be doing is, it will be destroying, breaking the spirit of this child gradually. And by this child reaches 20 years, 22, 23, 25 years old, he will not be what God ordained him or her to be. And therefore, for that reason, make peace. 3, and very importantly, do not prohibit your partner from accessing the children. I have seen men prohibiting their mothers. I have taken custody of my children. I ban her completely. You shall never come close to my children. Actually, they even go to the extent of declaring that if I ever see you within 100 meters, from my children, nitakukata na panga. I have seen it in many cases. I've talked to many women who have been banned from accessing their children. They cannot call. Yes, the marriage ended. They went separate ways.
Yeah.
But to the men who are watching, if you love your child truthfully, if you love your children so much, the best gift you can do to your children, give their mother unlimited access to the children. In any case, oh man, remember, these children, all of them, were in her womb for 9 months. There is a divine connection between a mother and her children. And any man who thinks that he can delete the cord between the mother and the children is dreaming, is kind of naive. And that's the worst thing that a man can do to the man, to the children rather. The mother should have unlimited access to the father, to the children. On the same note, the father to the women to the mothers who are listening, no matter how much you resent that man, no matter how much you hate that man, the worst you can do to your children is to restrict connection to their father. Unless the children tell you they don't want their father, please, for heaven's sake, do not disconnect. Do not kind of cut the link between the children and their father just because you have taken custody of the father. On the contrary, encourage the children to bond with their father. Encourage the children to connect with their father. It's for the good of the children. And lastly, for those people who are separated, no matter how much you hate each other, no matter how much you resent each other, you shall, and I say shall with capital letters, you must find ways of both of you meeting once in a while. Sit on same table with your children. Discuss, evaluate about the well-being of your children, and discuss about the character of your children.
Yes.
And
that's
no matter whether you have remarried, whether the mother has remarried, whether the father has remarried, there is absolutely no problem meeting with the ex to talk about the well-being of the children.
In a public place, right?
In a public place, exactly. It could be in a cave, it could be at Florence Hotel in Migori, it could be at Vanna Hotel, it could be in any place that be. Then just discuss. And I would love actually this meeting, the children to attend. Let them have a meal together. Let them talk and have that aspect of
connection.
And let the two parents get to hear from the children what they think. That it gives the moral support, the moral strength. It's just powerful.
So, wow, that was quite
as difficult as it is.
Yeah, it is.
It is the way.
Honestly, it is very difficult.
I know.
Yeah, for the sake of the third party, which are the children, sometimes you have to sacrifice your ego.
Exactly.
Yeah, for their well-being. We are in a world where mental health is really coming up so fast, and it's really affecting our children. You find that even teenagers, a young girl of 12, 10 has really done something tragic to their own lives because of family feuds.
Exactly. And there are many, those cases are many.
Yeah, so as much as it's said and really hard to be done, we just have to do it for the sake of the love of our children.
Correct.
Yes. Mr. Chacha, what message would you give to your family, the people who really surrounded and made your life, the people whom really made you the Chacha you are today? What kind of message do you have for them?
There are two sets of people. First and foremost, there are people who have really molded me, people who have unleashed my potential from inside me. And I want to recognize Yvonne Kawira of Tuko News in a very, very special way, because she really connected me and saw the potentials in me and even encouraged me to do quite a lot. I also want to appreciate Catherine Mwangi of My Story in KTN also, who first saw me and said that, I think, Mr. Chacha, you have a story, and this story is worth listening to. And I do believe that maybe millions of people have listened to this. I want to really thank these two ladies in a very, very special way. I also want to thank my family, especially there is Nyakakrao. I hope one day Nyakakrao will get an opportunity to really give her story in this podcast. I know she has given me a lot of strength, a lot of she has boosted my energy to really pick up the pieces. I remember many times she has told me, breathe in and out, breathe in and out, when I was almost unable to breathe, and I say thanks. I want to really also say thanks to my family, that Jane, I know I have big, fully grown up children, and there are times when I remember the good old days, when I would walk with my 3 sons, attending a Christmas party, attending a function within Moi Air Base, within the confines of Moi Air Base, when my children would walk besides me. And I just want to say that those memories give me a very powerful connection, a very powerful insight to my family. I want to say that despite all these things that happened, I want to say that I love them very, very much. I will always do. I will always appreciate each and every one of them. I also want to recognize that sometimes there are prices that we have to pay in life. And this is the price that I had to pay for me to be where I am. And I have taken this price very positively, and I want to use it positively, maybe to touch someone, to influence someone. And to those parents who are going through struggles with the children, I just want to tell you that many a time our children have been pushed by our very words, our own comments that we have been using, hoping to reclaim them. That, however, sometimes it is us who have pushed our children into a can of mental health, our deeds and our actions. I also want to encourage the couples who are on the waiting list of separation or divorce. Please don't. Call up for a dialogue. Call up for a truth, justice, and reconciliation family commission, and just talk. Evaluate how best you can navigate around this difficult challenge. Otherwise, I have to say thank you so much, Jane, for being my host, and thank you for the viewers who are watching. My name is George Chacha. I encourage you to subscribe to Family Therapy Podcast. Click the bell, click the like, and let us keep this dialogue, this conversation, even a notch higher, because in the end, I have a feeling that I have a calling to be a missionary in families, to be a missionary in people's lives. Otherwise, thank you so much, and God bless you. If you want to reach me one-on-one, the number is +254 722 381 547. You can also reach me via Facebook name, and my Facebook name is George Chacha. Thank you for watching, and God bless you so much. Thank you, Jane, for being my host.
Thank you very much.
Asante.